in this session, I just want you to bring you on the journey, really, of this change of emphasis that God is showing me. Not long after I kind of formulated what I'd been shown in the introduction to counselling and God was beginning to bring it together into my ministry for the Waterfall journey and about how you live in the journey. He woke me up one morning and blew me away by Beyond the Waterfall. Beyond the Waterfall. Ooh, actually, would you pass those around and have one of those as well? I should have given you one. And what he did was, he woke me up early, about 5:30, and I started drawing. And what he was saying to me was, there's a place here to come back into the presence of the Father. But it isn't a static place. It's a place to learn to live. There are things involved in living in this place, but then there's a journey to be made. And actually, I tried to go ahead of the Holy Spirit in my enthusiasm. And so with the Pathway group, my beloved fellow travellers, one week I tried to do the Waterfall and Beyond the Waterfall together. It was an absolute disaster because people have to understand what's going on in the waterfall before you can journey. You know, it's like if you were travelling and say you were going into a new and different landscape, which is quite different from the way where you've travelled before. It's still you and what you know, but you step into a new landscape. You have to learn what that landscape's around, where the sources are, how to function, how to manage. You know, think of dropping you down in Iceland, where the landscape sometimes is a bit like a moonscape, and all the ice and fire and all the rest of the things. And you have to get your bearings and see where you are. You wouldn't be dropped and immediately, sort of without a map or anything, start belting off in one direction, because you could do yourself harm and damage. What you do is you suss out where you are and what you've got and make a thing. Yeah, that's the way. We'll go and we'll start exploring. And it's a bit like that. The Waterfall is like being dropped in this new landscape, and it's about just seeing. I mean, we've said God's communicating in a different way to us. He's guiding us in different ways. It's much more real and alive than outside, because we've stepped into His story. So we need to learn His voice. We need to look around us and see. In fact, that coming into the Waterfall is turning everything on its head. From out here, where we've played God and controlled life and done what we thought was right, what we thought was good, what we thought was best, we come into this place where we're letting God be God, and we're trusting that He knows the best. He knows what's right, and it doesn't always look like we think it should look. If you look at your life, you might say, oh, I wouldn't have done that. I got to there, but that's not the way I'd have gone. I'd have gone around here. Or, you know, I would have gone that way. He took me all the way around there. Okay? But He knows the best way, and when we give our life to Him, He will find the path for us to travel for maximum good. Okay, so that's what I discovered then, that the Beyond the Waterfall was for way down the line. After Norman had that vision of Jesus, well, it was more than a vision, because Jesus was real beside his bed speaking to him. no one went through a lot for God to speak in that way to us, we felt, as a church. But it also felt like God was speaking to me and about my ministry too. That it was time, what he was saying is this: come up higher, come, more power, come on up higher. You know, he got rid of, from my mind, the idea that supernatural power was splatting to this overwhelming sense of love and change and coming into line with who he was. And we went to the retreat, and I started saying, you know, I think it's time for beyond the waterfall. And it was like dropping this large stone in the pond, because everybody had a trouble with beyond the waterfall, except me. You know, I knew what he did.
I've been waiting to get beyond the waterfall. I loved the week that she said was a disaster. For me, it was like water to my soul.
But that was because where you were, you can't take people from nothing. You've got to live some of this to have some experience. Otherwise, it's just words. Part of the problem of that weekend for me was I couldn't get hold of the picture of beyond. I had seen it. This is what I drew that morning, or one of the pictures that I drew. So what I thought at that time is, I'd be in the waterfall and you'd be in the waterfall, and we'd kind of meet up together, and we're a bigger channel of light, bringing heaven and earth together. And what God showed me was it isn't like that at all. It's actually, we're seated with God in the heavenly realm. And if we're up here, in the throne room, in the presence of our Father, our influence is not just this bit here, but because we're up high, it's like that. And it's the overlapping of us comes through that realm where the principalities and forces of evil are, in those realms above us, so that our choices about walking here, we can walk under the lordship of evil, that's the bottom layer. We can be in the waterfall. It's not just about us being individuals, but if we all come up and we're in the throne room, in the presence of the God, standing in the authority that God has given us, that Prudence said the other day, we are already seated in the heavenly realms in that authority, then our influence through the world, through what's going on, our authority in fighting the spiritual battles, our authority of being here on earth, and what we do and what we change just by being who we are is so much more different. Okay? And so I'll give you the Sermon on the Mount card, because right at the beginning I knew that the Sermon on the Mount was important. But what God has emphasised to me this year is what I've said to you, is that Jesus came for particular purposes. To open up the way for us to come into the presence of the Father. So we can be seated up there in the heavenly realms. He's come in order, in that, to share the kingdom of heaven, the rule and reign, what the sovereignty of God means here on earth. He's come to overcome the power of the devil. He's come to make disciples who will do his work under the guidance of the Holy Spirit after he's back in authority in heaven. And from the beginning I knew that the Sermon on the Mount was important, but what he's done this year is to open up my understanding of it, but he keeps changing the focus. So in the beginning, it was very much about, he focused on the Beatitudes. You've got some readings about the Beatitudes in the end of your book. You don't really need to look at them up unless you like to watch the words as well. Page 21. Would somebody just like to read it first of all from the Message?
When Jesus saw his ministry drawing huge crowds, he climbed a hillside. Those who were apprenticed to him, the committed, climbed with him.
Pictures that I drew. So what I thought at that time is I'd be in the waterfall and you'd be in the waterfall, and we'd kind of meet up together, and we're a bigger channel of light, bringing heaven and earth together. And what God showed me was it isn't like that at all. It's actually, we're seated with God in the heavenly realm. And if we're up here, in the throne room, in the presence of our Father, our influence is not just this bit here, but because we're up high, it's like that. And it's the overlapping of us comes through that realm where the principalities and forces of evil are, in those realms above us, so that our choices about walking here, we can walk under the lordship of evil, that's the bottom layer. We can be in the waterfall. It's not just about us being individuals, but if we all come up and we're in the throne room, in the presence of the God, standing in the authority that God has given us, that Prudence said the other day, we are already seated in the heavenly realms, in that authority, then our influence through the world, through what's going on, our authority in fighting the spiritual battles, our authority of being here on earth, and what we do and what we change just by being who we are is so much more different. Okay.